At our anniversary dinner, my husband stood proudly beside his mistress, smirking as he handed me divorce papers. "Finally, I'm done with you," he sneered. "I'm moving up now. Go find someone from your low class." Laughter filled the room. I smiled, thanked them politely, and what I did next froze every laugh in the air. Have you ever had your entire world shattered, not with a quiet whisper, but with a public, humiliating scream? Because that's exactly what happened to me when my husband, standing beside his mistress, looked me dead in the eye at our anniversary party and declared, "I'm upgrading now. Go find someone from your own low level." 40 people laughed, but they had no idea what was about to happen next. I sat there, an emerald dress flowing around me, my hands calmly folded in my lap. I watched the man I had spent 5 years supporting, sacrificing for, building up. Harrison thought this was his grand declaration of freedom, his moment of victory, claiming a younger, prettier trophy standing proudly beside him. What he didn't know, I'd been expecting a performance, though not those exact cruel words. 3 months earlier, I'd stumbled upon the truth. And every day since, I'd been meticulously crafting a plan to transform this moment from my public destruction into his. See that phone in my clutch purse? It was secretly connected to the venue's entire audiovisual system. And that yoga friend among the guests? She was actually my attorney. The mountain of evidence I'd spent 90 days compiling was minutes away from exploding across every screen in that room. The laughter echoing through this expensive hall. It was about to die in a way none of them would ever forget. But to truly understand that moment, you need to know how it all began. 7 years ago, I met Harrison Whitmore at a marketing conference. He was presenting on commercial property development, all confidence and success in his navy suit. He spoke of building a real estate empire like it was an undeniable fact, not just an ambition. He talked about the future as if he could construct it with his bare hands, and I found that vision utterly intoxicating. Coffee led to dinner, and by the end of the weekend, we were making plans to see each other again. Despite living in different cities, our long-distance romance lasted 6 months before he moved to my city for a property development opportunity. I like to think I was a part of that decision. 2 years later, he proposed at a fancy downtown restaurant, and I said yes without a second thought. I genuinely believed we were building something together, a true partnership, mutual support, a life reflecting both our dreams and contributions. I poured everything into that partnership. Harrison was launching his commercial real estate firm, and I became more than just his wife. I became his foundation. I introduced him to my marketing contacts, people who trusted my judgment enough to take his calls. Those introductions led to his first major property deal, the one that cemented his credibility in a cutthroat industry. While he focused on business, I managed everything else. The invisible labor of our lives, groceries, meals, bills, mortgage, repairs, our social calendar, all curated to advance his career. Our suburban home became my project. I decorated it, not for myself, but to project an image of success and stability, a home that said, "Harrison Whitmore is a man worth doing business with." I took pride in creating that environment, convinced I was contributing to our shared success, even if my efforts went publicly unacknowledged. Looking back, sitting there at Meridian Hall with those divorce papers, I could see how completely I had deluded myself. I was so focused on being the supportive wife, enabling his ambitions, that I never stopped to question if Harrison valued what I was doing. Did he see my contributions as partnership, or just the expected price of being married to someone with larger ambitions than mine? The shift in Harrison began about 18 months before our 5th anniversary. It was so subtle, so gradual, that I convinced myself I was imagining things. He started staying later at work, coming home after midnight with vague explanations. When I asked about his day, hoping for some connection to the business we were supposedly building together, his answers became shorter, edited. His phone habits changed dramatically, too. It went from casually sitting on the counter to being permanently attached to his hand, always face down, always locked with a password I didn't know and, foolishly, never asked for. Notifications would pop up, and he'd smile, a private smile that said whatever was on his screen was far more interesting than our conversation. Our conversations shrank to logistics. Who would get groceries when the mortgage was due, a leaky faucet? The emotional intimacy we once shared simply vanished. replaced by the polite distance of roommates. Physical intimacy. It followed the same steep decline. Frequent, then occasional, then rare, then nothing. When I tried to initiate, he'd blame work stress, big deals, difficult phases. And I believed him. Believing was easier than confronting the truth. I told myself that successful marriages required weathering tough seasons, that ambitious men sometimes got consumed by work. My role, I thought, was to give him space. I made excuses constantly, to myself, to my sister Emma, to our friends who noticed we barely spoke at gatherings. I was so desperate to believe our marriage was fundamentally sound that I ignored every glaring red flag. The late nights that smelled faintly of unfamiliar perfume, the weekend work emergencies that took him away, the unexplained credit card charges I rationalized away. Then 3 weeks before the party, the anniversary invitation arrived. Not a text from Harrison, not a conversation over breakfast, just a formal invite, professionally designed, announcing a celebration at Meridian Hall, one of the most expensive venues in the city. I stood in our bedroom, staring at my phone, a cold dread settling deep in my stomach. Harrison hadn't voluntarily planned anything for us in 3 years. Our last anniversary had been takeout Chinese food, and a card I bought myself and signed his name to. Yet here was an elaborate party for 40 guests, planned without a single word to me, the person supposedly being honored. I scrolled through the guest list, mostly his business partners and colleagues. My sister Emma was on it, a small comfort. A few mutual friends, who I knew would feel as awkward as I expected to. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't about celebrating our marriage. This was about something else entirely, something requiring an audience, elaborate planning, and an expensive venue to make an impression. That afternoon, I called Emma from my car. "Gemma," she said, her voice tight with concern, when a man who hasn't planned anything in 3 years suddenly throws an expensive anniversary party without consulting his wife, that's not romance. That's something else. You need to be ready for whatever he's planning to do in front of all those people. Her words articulated the fear I'd been trying to suppress. I wanted to defend him, to cling to the illusion that we were just going through a rough patch. But I couldn't. Not anymore. 3 weeks later, I would be sitting at Meridian Hall, in that emerald dress, watching him announce our divorce to 40 witnesses, standing beside his mistress. But in that moment, sitting in my car with Emma's warning echoing in my mind, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to be ready. That decision carried me through the next week. I moved through our house like a ghost, touching furniture I'd carefully selected, looking at photos of a marriage that now felt like a fiction. Harrison came and went, detached, barely registering my presence beyond logistical exchanges. Saturday morning, 3 weeks before the party, Harrison left at 6 a.m. for his usual gym routine, the exclusive club he'd joined 8 months earlier, claiming he needed to network with high-net-worth clients. I heard the front door close, his car pull out, while I lay in bed, pretending to sleep. Our mornings had become exercises in avoidance. I got up 30 minutes later to make coffee, a cherished weekend ritual. The kitchen was quiet, just the sound of water heating. Then I saw it, his laptop, sitting open on the counter. Harrison never left his laptop open. Everything was password protected, private, treated like classified documents. Yet there it sat, screen glowing faintly in the morning light. I was pouring hot water over the coffee grounds when the notification appeared. A small pop-up in the corner of the screen, perfectly visible. My hand stilled. Weekend away with L, Napa Valley Resort. Confirm reservation. The dates were for next month. 4 days at the romantic Vineyard Resort I had been suggesting we visit for 2 years. A place I'd bookmarked, mentioned repeatedly, trying to find something, anything, that might restore what we'd lost. But it wasn't with me. It was with L, a single initial, suggesting either careful discretion or the kind of casual intimacy where full names become unnecessary. I put down the French press with deliberate care, my coffee forgotten. I walked the 3 steps to the laptop. The shower upstairs was running. He'd be occupied for another 10, maybe 15 minutes. I should have closed it, respected his privacy, walked away. Convinced myself there was an innocent explanation. But my hands were already moving, clicking the notification to open the calendar. The screen filled with entries I'd never seen. Weeks, months of scheduled appointments that told a story I had been refusing to acknowledge. Lunch with Al appeared every Tuesday and Thursday at noon, hours he claimed he was with investors. Evening at Al's place, most Thursday nights, when he supposedly attended networking events, coming home after midnight smelling of wine and cigarettes. I scrolled further back, watching months of my marriage rewrite themselves. The Napa reservation wasn't an isolated gesture. It was part of a 14-month pattern of systematic deception. The earlier entries were even more explicit before he'd learned discretion. Dinner with Leia at Harborview. Meet Leia at the Grandmont Hotel. Pick up gift for Leia. Leia, not an initial anymore. An actual name. A real person who had occupied 14 months of my husband's life while I was being the supportive wife, ensuring his shirts were pressed and his mother received birthday cards. The shower upstairs turned off. I had maybe 5 minutes. My first instinct was to scream, to throw his laptop, to demand explanations. But something stopped me. A survival instinct. Anger without strategy was just noise. Confrontation without preparation would give him time to hide more assets, delete more evidence, construct more lies. Instead, I pulled out my phone, started photographing everything on his screen. My hands were steadier than they had any right to be. Every calendar entry, every email exchange, every financial document. I created a secure cloud storage account under a pseudonym, uploaded every photo while listening to him move around upstairs. Then, I closed his laptop exactly as I'd found it, and I returned to making coffee as if the past 10 minutes hadn't just dismantled my entire understanding of my life. Harrison came downstairs 5 minutes later, hair damp, gym clothes bundled. He was humming, relaxed, satisfied, a way I hadn't seen him in months. Good workout? I asked, my voice remarkably normal. Great, he said, leaning in to kiss my forehead with the casual affection you might show a moderately appreciated household pet. Sorry, running late though. Can you wrap those eggs to go? I wrapped his breakfast, handed him a travel mug. I watched him grab his laptop, oblivious. Waved as he left for another Saturday at the office, which I now knew meant Leia. The door closed. His car started. I stood alone in our kitchen with cold coffee and the crushing weight of knowledge. Then I sat down, opened my own laptop, and began researching divorce attorneys specializing in financial fraud. The search led me down a rabbit hole of legal websites. I needed someone who understood this wasn't just about ending a marriage, but about recovering stolen assets. Catherine Ross' name kept reappearing. Her testimonials were like victory reports from women in situations identical to mine. One caught my eye. Catherine recovered money my ex-husband swore no longer existed and made him pay for trying to hide it. I called her office Monday morning from my car in a grocery store parking lot. I need a consultation about divorce involving financial fraud, I said, keeping my voice steady. How soon can you come in? The receptionist asked. As soon as possible. Tomorrow afternoon at 2. Bring any documentation you have. Tuesday afternoon. I walked into a steel and glass building downtown, screaming expensive legal expertise. Catherine Ross was in her mid-40s, impeccably dressed. Her handshake was firm, her office intimidatingly organized. When she gestured for me to sit, she already had a notepad and recording device ready. Tell me everything, she said. I showed her the screenshots, walked her through the calendar entries, the emails, the financial documents. 40 minutes passed. Catherine filled several pages. Your husband, she said, looking up, her expression both sympathetic and predatory, is both dishonest and sloppy. That combination will be his downfall. Over the next 2 weeks, Catherine assembled a team that operated with military precision. A forensic accountant, Marcus, began tracing Harrison's money. He uncovered layers of hidden accounts, discovered Harrison was using our home equity as collateral for business loans without my knowledge or signature. A private investigator documented Harrison and Leia's movements. A paralegal, Sophie, organized everything. The case files grew thicker with every visit. Marcus found a vintage watch collection, worth at least $40,000, that Harrison had claimed he'd sold 3 years ago. It was sitting in climate-controlled storage. The credit card analysis revealed charges at luxury hotels on our joint account, I have been helping finance his romantic getaways. Dinners, jewelry, even spa treatments. The private investigator captured video footage. Harrison and Leah holding hands across restaurant tables, entering hotels in the middle of the afternoon. 3 weeks into building our case, Catherine called me back. "He is planning something public," she said, her expression grave. "The expensive venue, the guest list heavy with business associates, the formal invitations. This is not about celebrating your marriage. This is theater." She explained that men like Harrison don't just want to leave their wives, they want to be seen leaving, to be witnessed upgrading. Their decision validated. "The anniversary party is not a celebration," she concluded. "It's a stage. He's going to do something there, and we need to be ready with a response that is equally public and far more devastating." Her assessment made terrible sense. It explained why he'd suddenly planned an elaborate event after years of indifference. This wasn't about honoring our marriage. It was about positioning himself as the successful man, finally free from a wife he'd outgrown. Catherine drafted legal documents, prepared evidence packages, financial fraud, asset dissipation, infidelity documentation with dates and locations. "When he makes his move," she said, "we respond immediately, publicly, and with evidence he cannot dispute. He wants theater. We will give him theater. But our version ends very differently than the script he has written." The hardest part of those 3 weeks wasn't the meetings or reviewing the painful evidence. It was going home every evening and pretending I knew nothing. Maintaining the facade of the oblivious wife, living with the man systematically destroying everything we'd supposedly built. Every morning, I made coffee and asked about his day. Every evening, I prepared dinners he barely touched, scrolling through his phone, likely texting Leah. I did laundry, paid bills, kept our household running. I attended work functions, stood beside him, smiling, making small talk with people who had no idea. Sometimes Leah was there. I'd watch them maintain a professional distance, while their eyes communicated everything their words couldn't. 2 weeks before the party, at a charity gala, I found myself near Leah at the bar. She smiled, seemingly genuine. "You must be so proud of Harrison," she said. "He has built something really impressive." "We built it together," I replied, my voice pleasant, rage burning quietly beneath. "I was there from the beginning, made a lot of it possible, actually." "Of course," Leah said, though her expression suggested she hadn't considered my role. "It must be nice being married to someone so ambitious." I looked at this woman, who'd been sleeping with my husband for 14 months, enjoying romantic getaways, funded by my salary. "It has been educational," I said, excusing myself before I said something that would reveal how much I knew. The performance required constant vigilance. I became the perfect oblivious wife, the woman who suspected nothing, questioned nothing, threatened nothing. All while Catherine built a case that would destroy everything he was planning. The anniversary party was just a week away. Harrison started coming home earlier, almost jovial, confident, like someone about to execute a perfectly foolproof plan. He had no idea I was executing one of my own. The final week felt both impossibly fast and excruciatingly slow. Tuesday evening, Harrison came home at 6, a rare occurrence. "Thought I'd actually have dinner at home tonight," he said, loosening his tie, heading for the bourbon. We ate in silence until he cleared his throat. "This is going to be a special night on Sunday," he said, watching me. "Really special. I invited everyone important. Your sister is coming, right?" "Emma will be there," I confirmed, my voice neutral. "Good. I want everyone there. Want them to see where we are, where things are going." His phrasing was vague, carefully chosen. I played my role. It was thoughtful of you to plan something. The lie tasted bitter, even as the words came out smooth. He looked at me, a flicker of guilt, doubt, or anticipation in his eyes. It vanished, replaced by his confident mask. He went to bed early. I stayed up late with Emma. "I feel like I'm holding my breath underwater," I admitted, just waiting to surface. "You're stronger than I would be," Emma said. I'd have thrown his laptop through a window. I laughed. "Catherine says the key is patience. Let him think he has control, so we can take it away completely when it matters most." Thursday afternoon, Catherine called an emergency meeting. Marcus found something significant. Can you be here in an hour? I drove downtown, hence gripping the wheel. Harrison's business partner, Joel Preston, had been keeping documentation of questionable financial practices. Harrison has been inflating property appraisals to secure larger loans than the properties are actually worth, Catherine explained. He pockets the difference. It's systematic fraud, extending beyond your marriage into his professional operations. A tax attorney added, he'd been underreporting income from property sales, enough to trigger a federal investigation. This wasn't just divorce anymore, this was about criminal charges. Joel was willing to testify. Why wait? I asked. Because timing matters, Catherine said. If we file before the party, he might change his plans. We need him confident and exposed. Then we hit him with everything at once, the personal betrayal, the financial fraud within your marriage, and the professional misconduct that threatens his entire business. The scope of what we were building felt overwhelming. You need to leave no room for doubt, Catherine said. When you reveal what he has done, it needs to be so thoroughly documented that nobody, not his colleagues, not his business partners, not even his lawyers, can question the evidence. Friday afternoon, I picked up the emerald dress. The silk was beautiful, the cut flattering. Emma, who'd come with me, nearly threw her phone when Harrison's text buzzed. Wear something nice tomorrow? I want you to look good for our guests. He's unbelievable, she fumed. He's going to publicly divorce you, and he wants you to dress up for it. That's exactly what I need, I said, surprising myself with my calm. His arrogance is what makes this work. He's so confident I'll comply that he can't imagine I might have plans of my own. That evening, I sat alone, going through the evidence one last time. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Tomorrow is going to be perfect. Finally, I can stop hiding. It was Leah. She'd clearly gotten my number confused with his. She was excited. I forwarded the screenshot to Catherine. Her response, perfect. Keep that. We can use it. Saturday evening was like a last supper. Harrison came home early, poured bourbon for both of us. I've been thinking about us, he said. Tomorrow is going to mark a new chapter. Change can be good. His words were deliberately vague, constructed to mean anything. I played along. Change can be good. Tomorrow will certainly be memorable. We talked for an hour, our most extended conversation in months. Every word he spoke was theater. Every response I gave was performance. Harrison went to bed. I sat alone, finishing my bourbon, thinking how tomorrow night would be the last time he slept in this house as my husband. Possibly the last time he would be a free man. Sunday arrived with the weight of inevitability. I woke before dawn, listening to Harrison sleep beside me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent the day in careful preparation. The emerald dress hung, pressed. My hair appointment was perfect. Every detail mattered. Harrison spent most of the day at his office, then came home at 4 to shower. He passed me in the hallway, confirming he'd meet me at the venue. I was grateful for the solitude. It gave me time to center myself, run through the plan with Catherine one last time. At 6:30, I stood outside Meridian Hall alone. Emma had offered to come with me, but I needed this moment to myself. Needed to walk through those doors on my own terms. The building shimmered in the evening light. Harrison had spared no expense, ironically, from accounts that legally belonged to both of us. I checked my phone. Catherine had texted, confirming she was inside, playing my yoga friend. Marcus, the forensic accountant, was parked nearby. Everything was in place. I took a deep breath, smoothed the emerald silk, checked my reflection. I saw a woman far more composed than she felt. Then, head high, expression carefully neutral, I walked through the entrance. Every inch the devoted wife, completely unaware her marriage was about to end in front of 40 witnesses. The first thing I saw was Leah, standing beside Harrison near the entrance, greeting guests like this was her party. Her audacity took my breath away. She wore red, a designer dress that cost what I made in 2 months. Her hair styled in effortlessly romantic waves, her makeup flawless. She looked like success, like youth, everything Harrison apparently believed he deserved. Harrison saw me. His expression flickered. Surprise, guilt, discomfort. Gemma, he said, my name sounding foreign after months of casual disregard. You look beautiful. Thank you, I replied with perfect politeness. The venue is stunning. You did an excellent job. I turned to Leah, extended my hand. I don't believe we've been formally introduced. I'm Gemma. She took my hand, a flicker of pity in her smile. Leah Vaughn. Lovely to finally meet you properly. Finally, as if we'd been circling each other for years, instead of her conducting an affair with my husband. Lovely to meet you as well, I said, releasing her hand, moving past them into the event space before either could read anything in my expression beyond polite friendliness. The room filled. Harrison's business associates dominated. Emma was near the head table, her phone casually positioned. Catherine stood near the bar, playing her role perfectly. She caught my eye, a minuscule nod. Everything was in place. Dinner began. We were at a long table, center of the room. I sat at one end, a guest at my own anniversary celebration. Harrison held court at the other, Leah beside him, her hand touching his arm repeatedly. Small gestures of proprietary familiarity that made some guests visibly uncomfortable. People noticed. My entire focus was on Harrison, on waiting for the performance. I couldn't taste the expensive food. Between the fourth and fifth courses, Emma subtly positioned her phone. Recording mode activated. Catherine did the same. Then Harrison stood. The room went silent. Thank you all for celebrating this special evening with us, he began, his voice practiced, rehearsed. 5 years ago, I made a commitment. Tonight I want to acknowledge that commitment and where it has brought me. I watched his face. Satisfaction, the confidence of someone believing he was finally taking control. Marriage teaches you what you really want, he continued, looking directly at me. What you actually need. What you are willing to settle for versus what you deserve. Guests shifted. The atmosphere changed. Gemma has been exactly what I expected when we married. Supportive, reliable, present. He made those qualities sound like criticisms. But I have grown beyond what I was 5 years ago. My business has expanded. My vision has evolved. And I have found someone who matches where I am now, not where I was then. Leah looked at him with undisguised adoration. The room was utterly silent, save for the soft classical music. An inappropriate soundtrack for the destruction unfolding. Harrison reached into his jacket, pulled out a manila envelope. He walked the length of the table with theatrical precision and placed it directly in front of me. Divorce papers, he announced, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Already filed, already processed. I'm done with you, sweetheart. Finally, completely done. I am upgrading now. So, go find someone from your own low level. Leah laughed first. A bright, sharp sound. Then, some of Harrison's associates joined in, nervous laughter filling the space where shock had been. Emma looked ready to physically attack him. Catherine was absolutely still, her expression a laser focus. I looked at the envelope, at Harrison's triumphant face, at Leah. Then I smiled. Not a sad, broken smile. Something genuine, calm certain. The laughter faltered. Harrison's expression flickered with confusion. This wasn't his script. I was supposed to cry, to beg, to make a scene that validated his decision. I picked up the envelope slowly, deliberately, opening it with hands steadier than they had any right to be. The divorce papers were exactly as he described. I read the first page. Then I looked up at Harrison, an expression I'd practiced for weeks in front of my bathroom mirror. Thank you, I said quietly, but my voice carried perfectly in the silence. Truly, thank you for this gift. His confidence visibly wavered. Guests exchanged confused glances. I stood, smoothed the emerald silk of my dress, and reached into my clutch. My phone emerged. Since we are sharing important documents tonight, I said, my voice steady, carrying with unexpected authority, I have something too. A little anniversary surprise of my own. I had arranged access to the venue's AV system earlier, claiming I wanted to prepare a sentimental photo montage. The staff had been helpful. My phone connected. The screens flickered to life. What appeared was not a sentimental montage. It was Catherine's carefully edited video compilation, opening with simple text. What Harrison did while Gemma planned their anniversary. The soundtrack was dramatic, cold, classical. Then came the photographs Marcus had captured. Harrison and Leah entering hotel rooms, timestamps visible, corresponding exactly to when Harrison had claimed he was touring properties. Harrison and Leah at expensive restaurants, his hand on hers. their body language unmistakably intimate. Harrison and Leia at his exclusive gym, then leaving together, getting into her car, driving to her apartment. Text message screenshots appeared next. Leia calling him my future, Harrison promising their life together once he handled the Gemma situation. The footage was damning. It showed a relationship conducted in public, suggesting either remarkable arrogance or complete confidence I'd never discover the truth. The room was absolutely silent, save for the music. Every guest was forced to watch. Harrison's face morphed from triumph to shock, then pure horror. He was watching his private life exposed. Leia had gone pale, one hand pressed to her mouth, mascara running. Her face crumpled as she understood. Her career, her reputation, demolished. But that was just the opening act. The video transitioned smoothly to financial documents. Bank statements showing Harrison's systematic transfer of assets from our joint accounts to his, spreadsheets detailing the liquidation of investments I had helped fund, credit card charges for hotels, romantic dinners, jewelry, all on our shared accounts. The screens displayed documentation of the storage unit containing his vintage watch collection, the hidden accounts, the use of our home equity as collateral without my knowledge, the draft post-nuptial agreement, so one-sided it reeked of contempt. Harrison's business associates were leaning forward now, reading, recognizing the legal implications. Then came the final piece, a letter from the Internal Revenue Service. Official letterhead, proper seals, signatures from federal officials Catherine had contacted. The letter outlined an investigation into Harrison's company for tax fraud, underreported income, property valuation fraud, potential criminal charges. 40 guests sat in absolute silence, watching a successful man's reputation disintegrate, watching private financial crimes become public record, watching what they thought was a simple divorce announcement transform into evidence of systematic betrayal and fraud. When the screens finally went dark, the silence was total, broken only by Leia's quiet sobs. I walked the length of the table slowly, deliberately, holding a second set of papers. Harrison stood frozen, unable to speak or move, his face a pale shade of genuine shock. "You wanted to upgrade," I said, looking directly at him, my voice quiet but carrying perfectly in the silence. "But you forgot that intelligence is not measured by age or appearance. It is measured by strategy." I placed the papers in his hands with the same casual cruelty he had shown me. "These are from Catherine Ross, my attorney," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You'll recognize some of the language. It's the same language from those divorce papers you just gave me. Except in my version, you don't get the house you try to transfer into your name using forged documents. You don't get the investment accounts you attempted to hide. You don't get anything beyond exactly 50% of our legitimately shared assets, and you will be returning every cent you stole with interest." Catherine stood, professional and terrifying. "The IRS documents are legitimate," she announced. "I contacted them personally regarding Mr. Whitmore's tax irregularities. They were very interested in the information Mrs. Whitmore provided about unreported income and property valuation fraud." Harrison's mouth opened, no words emerging. He looked like someone drowning. Several business associates were already on their phones, typing rapidly, calculating how quickly they could distance themselves. I turned to Leia, still crying. "Your employer received an interesting package this afternoon," I said, my voice carrying the same quiet authority. "Video evidence of an employee engaging in, shall we say, misappropriation of corporate assets? Company hotels for personal use. Company expense accounts for romantic dinners. Company time for personal appointments." Leia made a sound between a sob and a gasp. Her career, like Harrison's reputation, was collapsing. I looked at the 40 guests, many now recording the scene. "Thank you all for witnessing this," I said. "Your presence makes everything documented, public, and very permanent." I picked up my clutch, nodded to Emma and Catherine. Then I walked out of Meridian Hall, head high, dignity intact, leaving behind 40 stunned guests, a weeping mistress, and a husband whose life I had just systematically demolished using nothing more than patience, evidence, and the strategic application of truth. The glass doors of Meridian Hall closed behind us with a soft, final hiss. The cool night air hit my face, and I realized I was shaking slightly now that the performance was over. Emma linked her arm through mine. Catherine walked on my other side, already pulling out her phone. We had left Harrison standing there, holding divorce papers that would strip away everything he tried to steal, left him with federal investigation documents that transformed personal betrayal into potential criminal prosecution. That was the most incredible thing I have ever witnessed, Emma said once we reached her car. Her voice shook. She'd been holding tension for hours. Gemma, everything was absolutely perfect. I leaned against her car, letting out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 3 months. I can't go home tonight, I said. I can't face that house right now. You're staying with me, Emma said immediately. I already made up the guest room. I figured you wouldn't want to go back there. Catherine finished typing. He will try to contact you, she said matter of fact. Probably within the hour. Angry first, then pleading. Don't respond to anything. All communication goes through me now. Let him spiral. Let him panic. Let his attorneys deal with the mess he created while we proceed with documenting and recovering every asset he tried to hide. We drove to Emma's apartment. My phone started buzzing around 9. Text messages from unknown numbers, social media notifications. Emma's phone, too. Gemma, she said, staring at her screen. The video is already online. Someone had uploaded footage from the dinner. The view count climbed from hundreds to thousands. How many people were recording? I asked. At least a dozen. Everyone had their phones out once your video started playing. We watched in real time as our anniversary dinner went viral. Comment sections filled with support, mockery for Harrison, celebration for what people called the most satisfying public revenge. By midnight, the views reached millions. My face was being screenshotted, turned into reaction images. Someone created a meme from me thanking Harrison for the divorce papers, captioning it with text about strategic planning and patience. That meme spread like wildfire. I turned off my phone around 1 a.m., the constant notifications overwhelming. Emma did the same. Try to sleep, she said. Tomorrow is going to be intense. I lay in her guest bed, staring at the ceiling, sleep impossible despite exhaustion. My mind replayed the evening. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Emma was already making coffee. Catherine called, she said. Wants to talk to you this morning. Said it's important. I called Catherine back. 3 of Harrison's major investors pulled funding overnight, Catherine said without preamble. Joel Preston released a public statement distancing himself. 2 property development deals fell through. And Leah was terminated from her position, effective immediately. That last piece hit differently. Leah had made her choices, but the swiftness of her professional consequences was sobering. Her company released a statement about ethics violations and misuse of corporate resources. What about Harrison? I asked. His attorney called 4 times last night, twice already this morning. They want to settle immediately. They're offering terms that are increasingly desperate. Each offer is worse for him than the previous one because his position is deteriorating rapidly. His business is collapsing. His reputation is destroyed. Federal investigators are beginning their inquiry. He has no leverage. How much worse can they get? I asked. That depends on what federal investigators find. If the property valuation fraud is as extensive as Joel's documentation suggests, Harrison could face significant fines and potentially prison time. When I hung up, Emma was reading something on her laptop, an expression of shock and amusement. News. Websites are covering this, she said. Not just gossip sites. Actual news outlets are calling it a case study in strategic response to betrayal. My phone, back on, was filled with missed calls and messages. 3 were from Harrison. The first was angry. The second was pleading. The third was threatening. I showed them to Emma. Don't respond, she said firmly. Catherine was right. Let him spiral. I deleted them. Whatever Harrison was experiencing now was consequence, not injustice. He had orchestrated a public humiliation to destroy me. The fact that his plan had backfired so spectacularly was a result of his own choices, his own arrogance. By evening, the viral video had been viewed tens of millions of times. My face was recognizable to strangers. I sat on Emma's couch, a glass of wine I wasn't drinking, and realized that despite everything, the viral attention, the legal battles, the complete destruction of my old life, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 18 months relief. That relief settled over me, complicated, acknowledging that while one chapter had ended, the aftermath required navigating entirely new territory. The divorce proceedings formally began the following week. Catherine filed comprehensive responses, asserting claims to every marital asset, demanding full financial disclosure. It was methodical, exhausting. Harrison's attorney tried multiple approaches to expedite settlement, each offer more desperate. Catherine rejected every one, insisting on a complete understanding of every asset. The proceedings took 3 months. Judge Margaret Chin, known for her no-nonsense adjudication, presided. Harrison's attorney argued the viral video created prejudice. Judge Chin shut it down with a single sentence Catherine later wished she could frame. Your client damaged his own reputation through systematic fraud and public cruelty. Mrs. Whitmore simply documented the truth. The settlement was everything Catherine had promised, and more. The house remained mine, Harrison's attempt to transfer the title legally void. The investment accounts were divided exactly in half. Retirement funds split according to legal formula. Every cent Harrison had transferred to his personal accounts came back, with interest. The vintage watch collection was sold at auction, the proceeds contributing to my settlement, a particularly satisfying detail given how many times he'd claimed those watches were gone. Catherine even recovered compensation for money Harrison had spent on Leia, the hotel rooms, dinners, jewelry, all classified as dissipation of marital assets. He effectively paid twice for the relationship that had destroyed our marriage. The final settlement was substantial, enough to pay off the mortgage and leave significant savings. Financial security I hadn't known in years. But I didn't keep the house. It held too many memories of a marriage that had slowly suffocated me. Instead, I sold it and used the proceeds to move into a penthouse apartment in the Arts District downtown. A space that felt like liberation made physical. 8 months after the anniversary dinner, I stood in my new apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Meridian Hall was visible in the distance, a personal landmark, the place where I had reclaimed my life. I decorated the space to my taste, not to impress. Art I genuinely liked, furniture for comfort. My career had transformed, too. My firm promoted me to creative director 3 months after the video went viral. My boss explained that someone capable of orchestrating such comprehensive strategic communication clearly possessed valuable professional skills. The promotion came with a 40% salary increase and creative authority. For the first time in years, I was earning money that was unambiguously mine. I adopted a cat named Justice, an orange, imperious creature entirely uninterested in performing emotional labor. Catherine became more than my attorney. She became a friend. She introduced me to a support group, women with similar stories. We shared experiences, strategies, building a community based on survival and growth, not shared victimhood. My story wasn't unique, though its viral documentation was. 9 months after the anniversary dinner, Catherine called with news that extended Harrison's consequences far beyond divorce. Joel Preston had contacted federal investigators with additional evidence about financial crimes reaching back years. Harrison had been systematically falsifying property valuations, inflating appraisals to secure larger loans, then pocketing the difference. Federal investigators launched a comprehensive examination. The result, criminal charges, 14 counts of wire fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy. The scope of his illegal activity was staggering. I was questioned extensively, cleared quickly. They understood I had been as deceived about his business practices as about his personal conduct. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I attended several days, watching prosecutors build an overwhelming case. Harrison's partner testified. Forensic accountants explained the fraud. Harrison was convicted on 11 of the 14 counts. At sentencing, Judge William Torres imposed 6 years in federal prison, followed by supervised release and restitution that would likely occupy the remainder of his professional life. I attended the sentencing hearing. Harrison stood behind the defense table, wearing a suit that no longer fit. When Judge Torres asked if he wanted to make a statement, Harrison looked directly at me. I destroyed everything good in my life because I confused success with happiness and ambition with fulfillment, he said, his voice stripped of all confidence. My wife deserved better. She was better, and I was too arrogant to recognize that until it was too late. The words might have meant something years earlier. Now they were just insufficient acknowledgement, delivered far too late. I felt nothing as he was led away. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even closure. Just a profound sense of release from a narrative I was finally finished living. That evening, I stood in my apartment with Justice curled on the sofa, harbor lights reflecting off the dark water. I finally understood something fundamental. Revenge had never been about destroying Harrison. It was about refusing to be destroyed by him. About documentation rather than confrontation. Strategy rather than emotion. Patience rather than impulse. Harrison had wanted to upgrade. What he actually did was trade partnership for performance. Someone who knew him completely for someone who knew only the version he performed for public consumption. The real upgrade had been mine. From a wife defined by her marriage, to a woman defined by her choices. From someone who absorbed criticism about inadequacy, to someone who recognized that inadequacy belonged to the person delivering judgment, not receiving it. The anniversary dinner video still circulates occasionally on social media. I no longer feel exposed by it. Instead, it's a permanent reminder that quiet people are not weak people. They're simply waiting for the right moment to demonstrate exactly how dangerous underestimation can be. Honestly, replaying this whole journey, it still takes my breath away. But I wouldn't change a thing. What about you? If you were in my shoes that night, what would have been your most satisfying moment? Let me know in the comments below. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And if you're all about reclaiming your power and refusing to be underestimated, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what we uncover next.